Good evening, viewers. Welcome once more to another program of Mazungumzo. This is your host, Dr. Gilbert Githere, coming to your homes with the program Mazungumzo. We've been covering so many topics, and especially of late, I've been covering the existence of digital objects because this is a very important subject as it relates to indigenous people. Because the internet is so important to the economy of the globe that if you cannot digitize your products, you cannot be able to market them. And for that matter, it is so important that the indigenous people are represented in the digital world or in the artificial intelligence. That's another subject, and that's why I'm covering Yuk Hui's book, which came out on 2016, on the existence of digital objects. Do they really exist? And now I'm starting to go into details of digital objects. And the main book we are going to be using and the analysis I'm doing, I borrow it from Yuk Hui or Hui Yuk, Yuk Hui, written in 2016. Yuk Hui first started computer sciences, and then he moved and studied philosophy. And he had to do that in order to put together the two disciplines, the computer sciences and philosophy, what philosophers think about the digital world. Digital objects, do they really exist? Now, he's supported by Smith, Gilbert Simondon. Gilbert Simondon also has written in the same realm. He has written about questioning, do digital objects really exist? Do they have existence? And he has borrowed from people like Aristotle. Aristotle wrote about categories. Leibniz wrote about the binary world of 0 and 1. He's the first one to kind of see the coming of the computers into our world. Way out 400 years ago, Leibniz, a great philosopher. But at the same time, there are other people who have also helped. And Hokuyo moves from classics, Aristotle, Socrates, and Plato, and trying to see, did any philosophers envisage the coming of the computational world or the world of the artificial intelligence? And did they say anything, pertaining to artificial intelligence as they were discussing the issues of the day? Like when the Greeks were pondering about who is a good man. A good man is a one who served his state, and participated in all activities of the society. He was considered a good and virtuous man. And all these things, Hokuyo goes through them trying to see, did they touch on the existence of digital objects? But when it comes to people like Descartes and idealism, yes, the mind and the body, I think so I am. Then he comes to somebody like Immanuel Kant, the critique of pure reason. That one actually, in the Western world, tells exactly how humans acquire knowledge. But did they touch on digital objects? Now, it is good to kind of, at least bring it in right now, early at these early stages of the introduction of the digital objects in a more detailed form, because on my webpage, YouTube, you'll find that I dwell with this subject, because I'm also going to touch on the indigenous languages and digital objects and the chance of giving African languages a chance and to invest heavily in them so they can participate in the digital world or artificial intelligence world, and they are not left behind, because it be so serious, because it could mean the disappearance of indigenous languages as we know them in the world. So it is so important. That's why we must participate in discussing things like digital objects and their existence. And people start to see, we understand the importance of the artificial intelligence or the World Wide Web, the internet, and how important it is to the survival of human beings as per 21st century and beyond. Now, Martin Heidegger, no, I said Immanuel Kant. Immanuel Kant actually gives us how humans acquire knowledge. And I can't go into the history of it so much. So there you see the acquisition of knowledge is expounded by Immanuel Kant in a very detailed form. But comes Hegel. Hegel also, who comes after Kant, and they come from the same country, he takes over the issue of the acquisition of knowledge. And he goes through consciousness, that the acquisition of consciousness to Hegel is actually the acquisition of knowledge. And consciousness supersedes everything. And the consciousness, as a human being acquires consciousness, he is in pursuit of discovering the Supreme Being. This is the route Hegel takes. He doesn't touch very much on the existence of digital objects, but he kind of also agrees that all knowledge is based on language. He's almost a Rotarian, Richard Rorty, because Richard Rorty in 1979, as I have said in many programs, is the one who tells us that all philosophers needed is language. For acquisition of knowledge to be there, you only need language. And somebody like Martin Heidegger kind of agrees that without language, there are no objects. So we can see that language, which is also so important in the world of digital objects, because as we continue in the subject, you will find that language is so important, because for you to write a program, Uniform Resource Locator, URL, that's an object. So language is so important, and it's the one which gives human beings knowledge. And you can see, I have touched a little, I'm going to expound, because URL, Uniform Resource Locator, is so important. It is inputted in the metadata right at the beginning. And it is the one which actually transfers images onto the web page. Is actually a labor tool that helps us it is like a labor, it's like the labor man used to give to produce products. URL as a command is able to show us where the images are in the internet. So you can see, because I'm introducing that, and Hypertext Transfer Protocol, HTTP. That's another object. So as I had said, we are going to look further and see what are the digital objects that we're talking about, and how do they come about, and how are they important in produce. They are inputted into the system. And when they are inputted into the system, it's like you have inputted labor into the computation world, and they are producing items. The items are produced by those commands. So the commands given to a computer, that one is actually an object. An object. And it's just like human muscle. It helps to produce food. You cultivate using your muscle, the energy of your body. The URL, HTTP, XLMSNS, Extended Markup Language Name and Space. When you're searching for things, that's like a vehicle. Is a tool you use, is an object you use to go and get things out there in the resource world of the archive. It is helping you, like transport you to go and get a book at the University of Nairobi. And those are now the digital objects, and they exist. So it's something we're going to go into the details of it, and in actually the workings of digital objects. The most important thing in them to function is relations. There is matter and form in physical objects that we know, but in the ability of digital objects to work and produce like 3D items, relationships of different categories, quality, quantity, space, time, all those things, they interrelate to each other so that there is production at the end of the day in the computer world. So like if you are going to produce a 3D synthetic arm or limb, the digital objects that you will need to perform, and at the end of the day, at the end of the conveyor belt, you get an artificial arm of an amputee to use. The objects and the labor and the muscles and the hormones and the nervous system and everything that will work together is all relationship. So relations is paramount in the digital world. And this is covered by Gilbert Simondon. Also in the digital world, and people who have Tim Baba-Lee and Yuk Hui, and then other many philosophers. I've mentioned Descartes, Aristotle, Immanuel Kant, Hegel, and also people like Charles P. Sanders, Martin Heidegger, John Searle, Putman, Richard Rorty. All these Omar van Quine, Ludwig Wittgenstein, Emmanuel Appiah, Lucius, look, all these famous philosophers, they have contributed in what Hook Dewey has written. Even somebody like Hume, Locke, they all at one time kind of, okay, we can call it sometimes, Rorty called that assertion, but they have been used to kind of help us arrive at that there are digital objects as we go into the 21st century. Until we meet again, this is your host, Dr. Gilbert Gisharu Githere, saying ciao ciao until we meet again. Thank you.